Good afternoon, everybody. Quickly introducing myself. My name is Madhur Singhal. I run Praxis Global Alliance, which is a specialized research and consulting firm based in India. They do a lot of work with global investors and a lot of sort of global and Indian pharmaceutical companies. Delighted to be a part of this panel, and very privileged to be moderating this very esteemed sort of panel of colleagues. I will, without sort of further ado about myself, I'll probably request everybody to just introduce themselves a little bit, just for the benefit of the participants, and then we will get going with the agenda. So maybe, Dr. Hegde, if you want to start, and then we go to Jasper and then to Umesh.
Sure.
Great. So good afternoon to my colleagues and friends in the audience and to my co-panelists. I would like to thank Voice of Healthcare and Times of India for the opportunity to participate as the panelist at this Global Healthcare Unity Summit. I am currently Vice President Medical at Cipla Limited, in charge of the medical team. Cipla is the third largest pharmaceutical company in India, and I'm a pediatrician by training. I have worked for the last 8 years in Indian pharma, and for 10 years before that in international pharma in different markets, in companies such as Abbott, Solvay, Novartis. I look forward to this discussion, and we hope to have a lot of questions as well as comments from the audience. Thank you.
Jasper, if I could request. Yeah.
Thank you. I echo the same sentiments. Thank you very much to the organizers to invite me. Very happy to be here. My name is Jasper. I work for AstraZeneca, the British-Swedish biopharmaceutical company. Our core business is in the chronic disease spaces, oncology, cardiovascular, renal metabolic, and oncology. But lately we have also been quite active, I can say, in the COVID-19 space, particularly with the distribution of the Oxford University vaccine. For AstraZeneca, I am responsible for strategic partnerships with governments and other partners in the Asia area, which includes Korea, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, and India. And prior to that, I used to work for the British government as well as the European Union.
Fantastic, Jasper. Delighted to have you here. Umesh?
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen, and good afternoon, my fellow panelists. I'm also having the same feeling, and just to give you a brief about my journey. My name is Umesh, currently associated with H Pharma, which is an emerging company founded by co-owners of Ipca Laboratories. I have a versatile experience in the pharma value chain for about 24 years. 12 years been with IMS Health, currently IQVIA, which is more into strategic consulting, data analytics, and clinical trials. So I was head of sales, and by virtue of that, I was interacting with a lot of pharma clients in India and Southeast Asia. That's why I could know a little bit about pharma. Before that, I was with over a decade in the global API industry. So have a perspective about API manufacturing and API sales from India as well as from global perspective. So I could add my 2 cents in today's discussion, and looking forward to have a great session today.
Fantastic. So this is excellent. Let me actually with those intros kick off the agenda. There are, really speaking, 2-3 different themes we want to touch upon today for the benefit of the attendees. One is the central theme around the whole Atman Nirbhar campaign, Atman Nirbhar Bharat campaign that has been kicked off by the Honorable Prime Minister. We want to really talk about, what is the impact of the campaign on the pharmaceutical industry, and what are the new business areas and opportunities that are emerging out of it, both for the domestic pharma companies, domestic API manufacturers, and even businesses that are engaged in export using India as the base. We talk about the Atman Nirbhar and sort of self-sufficiency and broader, broader opportunities that emerge. Second, we'll talk about this COVID-19. How have different pharmaceutical companies been responding, and the role that particularly India can play, both from an MNC perspective as well as from perspective of our local producers and marketers. And finally, we want to talk about sort of the government and regulatory bodies. What is the role they're playing? What more they could do, and how could private participation jive together with the long-term government intent, which I think is becoming more and more serious and constructive in the Indian landscape. So I think maybe let me start with Umesh, from your perspective. Why don't we kick off on sort of the Atma Nirbhar Bharat and what it entails, and how do you think that's really impacting the overall value chain for us, on the pharmaceutical side for all kinds of Indian players.
See, it's a very good question. Atman Nirbhar, though we are considered as a pharmacy of the world, but there is a lot of dependency on some raw material. We are manufacturing intermediates, we are manufacturing API, we have most of the advanced formulations which we are supplying to India as well as globally, US, and you name a country, Indian manufacturers are present, right? But coming back to reducing our dependency, I think there are some chemicals which has been a basic chemical which is been derived from China, and once the take an example of hydroxychloroquine sulfate. When initially during the COVID era they said hydroxychloroquine is the medicine, there is a lot of shortage because the basic raw material was coming from China. So and that goes with every single molecule or every single category of molecule, I would put it this way. So India has been large customers for anti-infectives. There's a lot of consumption of anti-infective, antibacterial, right? So the dependency on the China for basic or starting material was very, very high. And with this campaign, I think government is trying to address this problem, and now, and obviously we should give our recommendations, and I'll add my view as well, because if it's not that we wanted to be Atman Helper, all country wanted to be Atman Helper for that. Even China, we are saying that we have to reduce the dependency on China. Same is the case with Chinese government and Chinese manufacturers, that they are also looking at this as a threat. And they have started, putting a lot of restrictions on Indian imports to China, and also they are kind of, what my resources says from the industry, that there's going to be a 15 to 20% of price hike in the raw materials. So that's something which is coming up.
Got it. No, this is very, very, very helpful and interesting. Moving to Dr. Hegde, what's your experience? How do you read the PLI? And such other schemes and incentives that have been announced by the government? Do you see them to be sort of substantive enough? And secondly, are they truly creating an impact, or you think they will create an impact on the ground? What's your sense?
Yeah, thanks. So I think by Atma Nirbhar, what we mean is self-reliance without any protectionism, and also the hope or the aspiration that India will, make a greater contribution to the global economy. So this is the intention behind the Atma Nirbhar campaign. Now, how does it apply to the pharmaceutical industry? Okay, so India, as you know, is the pharmacy of the world. Every third pill that is consumed in the US comes from India. Now, we have achieved great excellence in delivering generic medicines all over the world. The manufacturing process that we have for the production of generic medicines, it's honed, it's trusted, and it is one of the most robust generic pharma industries in the world. In fact, the largest number of US FDA inspections outside of the US are probably taking place in India. So what I am saying is we have had many successes. However, in order to increase our contribution in pharma globally, what we need to do is we need to move up the value chain. We need to bring more innovative products to the market. Okay. So by this, in order to do this, we have to focus on drug development and not so much. India has focused up to now on drug development. Sorry, and we have to now focus on the basic R&D. Basic R&D has never been a focus in India. We are good followers, but we are not good leaders in terms of pharma production. And that is because we don't have too much focus on skilling, culture, and reward for innovation in basic R&D. I think the other lever which will help us to become a global force in pharma is improvement in our own internal domestic delivery of public healthcare. We need to provide healthcare services to improve access, affordability, and quality. And we have to move from the single lever of focusing on price alone, as a determinant of let's say, product, and to other important levers like science, progress, and with a special emphasis on innovation and quality. Once we create an Indian ecosystem for this, I think we will automatically move the needle on India's contribution in terms of pharmaceuticals to a new, greater, and higher level. Thanks.
Got it. No, I think this is interesting. You touched upon quality and and some of these other aspects. So maybe Jasper, especially from your vantage point, you obviously represent a global pharmaceutical company, and with a substantial presence and gravity in India. And how do you see this opportunity? And for you as a large pharma major, what is the significance of the theme of self-reliance, and what kind of opportunities you think it's creating for you?
Yeah. No, thank you for that. And I actually very much want to underwrite those comments by Dr. Hedge. I think the way we look at this is that the self-reliant effort should be more about enabling local innovators than about protecting local innovators per se. And those are two different things. The idea that COVID underscores India's role as pharmacy of the world also opens up new opportunities to accelerate the domestic development of vaccines. But not only of vaccines, also of, for instance, antibody treatments. And so using that as an opportunity to strengthen domestic R&D and leapfrog higher up to the value chain, I think is the strongest opportunity there is. And of course, for that to be able to be possible, we need a domestic market that is attractive for those R&D investments to occur in. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there to even incremental changes in IP protection and incremental changes into the reward for innovation don't have to mean that healthcare becomes more expensive, but do send a signal to the industry to see India more as a hub for innovation than as a hub for purely low-cost manufacturing.
Interesting. So I think actually that's an interesting point, Umesh. You deal with a lot of this directly, especially given your sort of participation with CDMOs and so on. Is the India play more of a low cost play and hence a pharmacy of the world, or is it also going to become much more value added over time? How do you see sort of CROs, CDMOs? I also hear CRDOs, right? So you're also coming up with interesting terms now. But what is really the opportunity? What character?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of the basic chemical. I'm just taking a step back and trying to help you in the basic chemistry of the Indian pharma. A lot of this, and Dr. Rashmi can also add, the likes of cephalosporins, the likes of antibacterials. These are a lot of dependency on China. Unless and until we are able to get that thing sorted, we will not be able to be a self-reliant. The biggest delta is what China has been doing, we should follow the similar, similar model. The mantra or bottom line is a scale. We have 20 manufacturers of one molecule, and once and China compete, and they beat the competition, and end of the day we don't have those manufacturers manufacturing those molecules in India because of shortage of raw material, because of non-competitiveness. What we can do, I mean, there are few, I just touch upon a couple of points and a couple of examples, right? Fermentation is area where which is likely which is not so advanced in India as compared to China, maybe because of the land and because of the temperature control and all of that. A lot of fermentation based products have been used in the industry, and that's where the dependency on China or rest of the world is very, very high. So if we could get one area self-reliant, I think that will address, rather than having the entire, addressing the entire molecules, we could
Understood.
do it in a phase wise, so that will help. From, I think, yeah, that's from API side. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point. You said look at it as a specific molecule or a specific sort of maybe a few therapies, and be truly sort of deep there rather than go wide. Maybe Dr. Hegde, as you think about self-sufficiency, and rather from your perspective, actually self-sufficiency is probably gets too jingoistic, but even if you were to say, look, how do we get control, get in control of supply chains, get in control of of our destiny, and create opportunities for local manufacturers to innovate and to manufacture or build capacities of scale, as Umesh was saying. What is in the overall route of synthesis? Do you see opportunities to be different for KSMs, and and the N-7 APIs, and then N-5, and then the final ones? Like, how do you see the landscape or the opportunities to be different across the chain if you were to just pick one molecule and sort of go deeper there?
Okay. So I will talk to you about a good example and a bad example. So the good example is, for example, the drugs that we're using currently for COVID, that is remdesivir and favipiravir. Now, these drugs, and similarly in the past, drugs that were used for hepatitis C, drugs which are used for certain kinds of cancers, the model that the Indian industry is currently following is, that we license in these drugs from the global manufacturers, whether it's Mylan, whether it's Gilead, or whether it is some other global company. And, because of the volumes of the use of the drug in India, we get it at a fraction of the price that it is available in the US or in the European countries. So with, for example, remdesivir and favipiravir, the drugs which are currently the probably only two drugs which have been shown to have some efficacy in the treatment of COVID patients. The drug is licensed into an Indian manufacturer or a couple of Indian manufacturers who then, help other companies to promote the drug. So, for example, for remdesivir, there are 2 or 3 companies which are manufacturing the drug and providing it to the other companies for marketing and sale in the country. So, what happens because of this is that the access of patients to these drugs increases in India, and also these patients get the drug at a fraction of the price that it is available abroad. So this is a good example of what can be done in India. At the same time, what we also see is that, since most of our APIs come from China, while we are self-sufficient in finished formulations, we're still not self-sufficient in terms of API. And if we reduce the import dependency for APIs, this will be a boon for India and Indian patients from several perspectives. One is self-sufficiency. 2 is the quality of the products. We can ensure high quality products coming, for our domestic population and also for the world market. And we will also be creating jobs locally for our young people. And in order to do this, what we need is basically we need technological advances in manufacturing, distribution, in R&D, and skilling of the population. We need to
Got it.
have a agile and innovative mindset. I think both you as well as Umesh have, focused on this previously, and
Got
we
it.
need this innovative mindset in the private sector as well as among the regulators. Now
Got
this
it.
is something that will ensure that we have end-to-end manufacturing in India, and our domestic market becomes even further robust.
No, this is excellent. So I'll actually pick that point on
Can
regulation,
I
come to
add?
you. But before that, there's an interesting point that Jasper and that you had made, which is about global, best practices and and how sort of how does the world view India, Jasper, in this context? And you represent AstraZeneca, and you sort of innovation hubs and manufacturing hubs across the globe. How do you see India, and what do you think we can learn? Right, it's not about where India is, but it's more about what can we learn and what will take us right up there, right, where we truly become strategic to the world as a pharmaceutical supplier across the value chain.
Yeah. Well, maybe let me first off honestly and openly sing the praises of India. I think COVID-19 shows the enormously valuable role India plays as pharmacy of the world. And that is true for vaccines. That is true for antibody treatments, which are currently also under development in India. But that is also true for other very basic medicines, such as dexamethasone, the steroid that has proven so useful, and which a number of Indian manufacturers are also making available to the world. But I think on top of that, if you sort of look at the broader spectrum of Asia Pacific countries playing in this space, I think the comparison with China is a relevant one and is a useful one. But I think the ambition of India should not stop there. It should look a bit further ahead. How do we move up to the value chain as India? How do we grasp the higher margin ends of the market? And so we as AstraZeneca are very active in India in many ways, including in a lot of our clinical trials. But as of yet, we're let's say slowly only considering R&D efforts in India. And that's not because India doesn't have the expertise. It does have that expertise. It is very well recognized for its expertise. But it really is because the local market conditions don't give the strongest incentive for local innovation. Incentives that you do find in other markets such as Korea and Taiwan, Singapore, which have in the last 2 decades or so have really jumped ahead as new beacons in the global biopharmaceutical industry. And so I think if India wants to set aspirations, I would recommend to look at those markets while continuing, of course, to learn from China.
All right. This is interesting. And, I'll also welcome Dr. Mahesh Balgat, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Syngene. Welcome, Dr. Mahesh. We can't see you, but, I hope we can benefit from your wisdom. Like any thoughts from you on, the opportunity, that is coming to India, from COVID, and specifically, what is the role you see Indian CDMOs, etc., play in the global context? Dr. Mahesh, are you there? Okay, looks like his audio is probably also having some trouble. So coming back to the Dr. Hegde, you mentioned this interesting thing about regulation, right? And
Yeah.
regulation is a taboo word, but we hope that it will sort of support the creation of a pretty vibrant ecosystem when it comes to development of pharma capacities and capabilities. So where do you see the maturity of the regulations to be? Like, do we need to do more? If yes, in what regard? Do you think there are certain things that are already done, but we're not taking full advantage of it? Like, you just talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. So, as you rightly said, to put India on the global map, what we require is a steady, concerted, aligned effort both at the government and private sector in pharma. And smooth, seamless regulations will go a long way in encouraging the further development of pharma in India. So I think there are 2 or 3 pieces over here. The first and foremost is the thing that we have to align ourselves to global regulations. We have to have predictable regulatory outcomes. Most, I will not say most, but a lot of these initiatives have been put in place. So, for example, pre-submission consultation, which is something that is available with authorities worldwide in the EU and with the US FDA, is now also available in India for a fee. Online regulatory submission for product registrations, for clinical trials, online subject expert committee meetings for registration of products, for approval of clinical trials. Now, all these are available in India. I think some of them have been hastened because of the COVID pandemic. Also, this is now making the whole process of the regulatory and the private industry interaction more transparent, more agile, and with a good turnaround time. If you look at the 2 COVID products that I talked about, remdesivir and favipiravir, the drug safety regulations, the pharmacovigilance regulations, rules that we are following for these 2 products in India is the same as that in Europe and the US, which is again, an important step in the direction of becoming world class. So there is progress already, but in order to be a global player, we will need to be more proactive and more transparent in our regulatory processes. We need not necessarily wait to just follow the regulations that or the guidances that are put in place by the US FDA or the AMEA authorities. In order to have innovative products which are innovations of the Indian market, we need a unique pathway. And if you just look at the number of basic research projects or the phase 1 studies which are registered on CTRI, you'll see that it is in single digits in India. And these numbers give a clear indication of the paucity of innovation in India. To give you one example, if we wanted to encourage API manufacturing in India, we need a regulatory pathway and timeline which is dynamic. For example, to get a new product registered, a new drug approved in India, or a subsequent new drug approved in India, what we need to submit to our health authority is a 12-month stability data. But a new drug approval in the US by the US FDA only requires 6 months of stability data submission. So, there are a lot of gaps in these different regulatory processes where we should really, very, very quickly, bridge these gaps in order to improve innovation. There's just one more thing I would like to talk about. If we look at regulations, we also need to be aware of the fact that everything is now moving to digital platforms, and we have to look at data ownership, data confidentiality, data portability in electronic medical records, and we have to have regulations in place for them. We have to look at online pharmacies, and we have to look at diagnostic facilities, and we have to ensure that there is oversight for all these technological applications to healthcare and pharma.
Got it. No, this is very, very, very helpful. I think, Umesh, you've been trying to speak with one of the things. See, you look at the industry also, participate in the industry in a very meaningful way. Doing a lot of wide variety of products and also serving globally, right? How do you have you seen any noticeable changes in the way you've been able to operate now, or in the way you are able to access market opportunity because of all the changes in regulation or even government schemes and whatnot? Like how have things changed in the last 6 to 9 months for you?
I think, the global sentiments, if I have to pick up those, anti-China global sentiments, a lot of thirst has been coming to India. And now this is a time we should encash on it, right? I'll just pick up one or two examples where, again, I'm coming back to the dependency and Atma Nirbhar and the self-dependency on Indian pharma and the API manufacturing, as well as, the backward integrated chemicals, basic chemicals. There are some plant-based raw material. I mean, these are the things which we can promote and that will help farmers as well. Artemisia, which has been used in artesunate, which is anti-malarial. Malaria has been quite, vibrant in India. So if we could encourage farmers to, cultivate Artemisia plants and then extract artemisinin or the artesunate, raw material, that will help. One, to farmer dependency on China would also be a little less. And these are the changes the government should encourage, and government should, proactively help industry. Madhur, are you there? I think we lost.
Yeah, I think I don't know what happened, but 15 seconds I got blanked, but that's fine.
Yeah. So that's one area. Secondly, support, because as I said, to encash the opportunities, we need to scale up our manufacturing, right? Rather than importing API, we should have, I'll just give you one example of cephalosporin range of product. There were a lot of manufacturers of cephalosporin based APIs. Now there are very few. Entire dependency moved back to China, and now we are struggling. How do we really tackle that problem? So streamline the regulation, putting a transparency. If you are really want to encourage manufacturing, you need to support them with infrastructure, electricity, the roads, and the major concern to the pharma manufacturers or ETP, or how do they manage the waste or waste management. If that can be taken care of by the government or some neutral authority, that will actually help the industry.
Got it. So I think now that we have Dr. Mahesh Bhalgat also, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Syngene, so trying to pull him in the conversation. Dr. Bhalgat, you obviously look at the market and participate in the market in a from a research perspective and drug development perspective. How do you see last 6 months, and especially the government not regulations but really schemes and so on to be creating an opportunity for CROs and other pharmaceutical participants in India?
Yeah, so first of all, my apologies for some connectivity issues, which is why I was delayed. But hearing on the conversation, I think it's very important that we are talking about how do we become self-reliant and how do we benefit from the COVID times that we are going through right now. And I'll tell you that one of the things that we do as a CRO CDMO is actually can act as that bridge. Because the whole conversation is focused. If we hear the themes from Dr. Rashmi, Dr. Umesh, and Jasper as well, is we need to leverage innovation, and we need to learn from the past, right? And if we say that learning from the past is about how do we build out of this dependency that we are today living in the world with of APIs coming from China, raw materials coming from the US, Europe, diagnostic kits coming from Korea, so on and so forth, right? So how do we get across that? And one of the central themes to all of this is, can we bring that innovation mindset? Can we bring that discovery mindset? Can we bring the ecosystem that will promote all of this? Now, how do we do that? And what is there within India that we can leverage? And I believe, so today when we look at the CROs, the CDMOs, CDMOs like Syngene, our primary clientele are companies that are working in the US and Europe. And for those clients, we're actually doing discovery work. We're actually doing a very high risk, very productive kind of work that will lead to developing pipelines. We in India need to leverage these sorts of organizations, these sorts of institutions, and say, let's use this to promote that same culture and mindset within the Indian environment.
Got it.
That is what will get us from the Me Too to actually doing new and innovative. The second component, that I just wanted to bring up also, which is really about COVID times, right? COVID times has shown that what we didn't know existed in India, and I'll just take our own example. We set up in Syngene in within 6 weeks an RT-PCR laboratory. Fine, we had all of those capabilities, we just did it, and we got all of the accreditations for it. What we were also able to do is start making probes, primers, and some of the materials, some of the recombinant proteins in India. Today, there are many of the customers and users of these diagnostic kits who are saying that, well, we didn't even know this could be possible in India. And so this
Correct.
is what we need to leverage and say that, look, we do have that expertise. Now, how do we bring that connectivity? And that's where I think the government needs to step in. The government has the arm of making this connectivity happen through funding initiatives for this, which then make these as available for the rest of the country to utilize as well, and bring in that subsidization component, if you will. So I think these are the sorts of things that I wanted to tie in together to say, we need to build the ecosystem, we need to leverage what is there in India, and then we also need to make the government central to making all of this happen and available.
No, I think very interesting. You're talking about ecosystem, talking about culture, and talking about sort of funding or whatever financing sources here. Jasper, moving to you, what else do you think, or are these three ingredients enough to create the real Indian story, or is there more that we might be missing, or that the private players or the government might be missing, to create a vibrant, truly vibrant, self-sufficient ecosystem?
Well, I think those three are absolutely critical to the success of a successful biopharmaceutical innovation ecosystem. But if you look at some of the other big life sciences ecosystems like Cambridge, or again in Asia, like a Korea is very much emerging. What you see there is not just individual plans that tackle one of the factors, but rather holistic plans that try to look into how do we, for instance, get academia ready to start thinking about how do we commercialize our inventions, and pulling through the enormous talent and expertise that lives in Indian academia and pulling that into the beginning of pipelines is something where government can also play a strong role in incentivizing, in creating the right sort of incentives for academic institutions to think that way. So rather than thinking about, is it about regulatory, is it about pricing, it's a holistic plan that looks at India's unique situation and tries to close some of the gaps that have been identified in other countries. And countries like China, for instance, are racing to fill because they have caught up to the understanding that a holistic plan works much better than, for instance, simply giving manufacturing incentives.
Got it. And when you say holistic plans, what else could be there? Is manufacturing incentives? You can create special economic zones. You can create some sort of tax blankets. But how do you create the right talent pool? At the end of the day, it starts from the bottom, right? You need the right talent. You need to foster the right culture, as Dr. Balgat was saying. But what else? How do you do that? Is there is it through participation? Is it through a tighter, academia participation into this? What else can happen?
Well, I think there's multiple sort of layers of attacking that question, right? I think at the top layer, you need a domestic ecosystem that has the right scientific infrastructure, that has the right clinical research infrastructure, that has the right regulatory, market access and pricing, and IP protection systems. So those are key fundamentals. And then at a more operational level, you need to start mapping, well, where are the gaps exactly? What is missing to, for instance, activate academia and make them more geared towards starting to build a pipeline? And many countries are struggling with this, right? This is not an easy thing. This is not something that calls for a quick fix, but rather it takes a concerted effort set by one political vision towards building the biopharmaceutical hub that India can be, that we all know that it has the potential to be.
Yeah, and Dr. Hegde, coming to you then on this one, do you think regulation is moving ahead of the ecosystem, or just in lockstep, or actually falling behind and becoming a constraint to what we could be?
So regulation is obviously lagging behind, and in almost every country that we have seen, regulations do lag behind a little. So, for example, if I was just to take online pharmacies and regulations related to online pharmacy. It's only in April 2019 that the General Pharmaceutical Council, EPC, in the UK has put in regulations for, how online pharmacy business should be conducted. Okay, so we in India put out a draft for this in August, I think, 2018, but we still have not notified the draft. So regulations will always lag behind whatever progress is made. That is because regulations are conservative. But if you ask me about how should we look at it, one of the things is, as Jasper said, we look at, from the top level, what are, the different functions that need to be aligned, like IP, pricing, regulations, manufacturing,
Right.
skills, and so on. But I also think one other way to look at it is to look at it from who we are serving. I mean, are we serving patients? Are we serving doctors? Are we bringing medicines to the market? Are we, helping with the healthcare access? And that also will help us to determine, what are the directions we need to take.
Got it.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Umesh, any closing thoughts from you? And by the way, comments to the audience. If you have questions, please do post them in the chat panels or the Q&A panels. I'll try my best to incorporate them. But Umesh, any thoughts from you on regulation or other aspects that have just been spoken by Dr. Balgat and Jasper?
In fact, as I said earlier, we need to encourage this opportunity, and not in a holistic way, but with a phased manner. So if you can pick up some areas and address that, and then go on enhancing our support to the Indian manufacturing, I think that will help. And there has to be a committee of persons who are into the industry, right from R&D, production, logistics, government, academia, who would take a holistic perspective and give that comments and recommendations to the government to be able to that can be actioned.
Got it. No, I think this is great. Dr. Balgat, just any closing remarks from you on on the whole sort of theme of Atma Nirbhar? Just what are the kind of new opportunities you've seen sort of come up in the last 6 months? We didn't hear from you earlier. Any closing remarks on the opportunity and where this is more significant than the others?
Yeah, and I think as we think about Atman Nirbhar and as we think about the current COVID times, I mean, there's a lot of negatives, right? We can focus more on the positives, and what have we learned, right? We've improved dramatically our supply chains. Despite all of this, we've figured out how to move material from one place to another, from different parts of the world, from alternate sourcing, and I think that's something that we should continue to build on. The second bit that is there is, we've now learned that in India, we can do vaccine development, we can do vaccine partnering to actually start to make millions and billions of doses, even of a new vaccine. So far, India was, of course, doing that, but we were doing that for the Me Too vaccines. Now we are getting into stepping into the arena of the new vaccines. And there is, we have to look at what are the adjacencies that are possible, right? The adjacencies are, for example, start to build innovation in testing methodology, start to build innovation in making some of the adjuvants or the raw materials that go into these. And I think those are some of the things that are going to come about. The last bit that I sort of want to offer is, we've also learned a lot about the whole adjacency that is required from use of technology. And this is not just for the work from home, but it's for us to start incorporating this technology into our manufacturing sector. A lot of data collection we are now able to do, which we should use in our biomanufacturing. Especially, I come from a more biomanufacturing background with a biomanufacturing emphasis, and to say that, how are we able to transform the yields, the turnaround times, the cycle times of biomanufacturing processes, and how can India become not just the API capital or the bulk drug capital that we've been trying to do, especially playing this battle with China, but take the step ahead in terms of at least biomanufacturing. We know biomanufacturing is the next future. Biopharmaceuticals are the next future. What can we do to learn from what we did not do in time on the small molecule side, and actually leverage that for the biomanufacturing, which is the future of medicines?
So excellent. I think we are right at the.
We talk about cell and gene therapy areas and many other newer areas, but all of these adjacencies is what we need to really think about, where we can be ahead of the game right now.
Fantastic. No, I think this is excellent. I think we are right at the top of the 45 minutes that were allotted to us. So, unless Dr. Hegde, Umesh, Jasper, if you have any closing comments, I suspect we can take the liberty of an extra minute. Anything that you would want to cap off?
Ladies
Yes.
first.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would say that, COVID has, we have a long-term transformation impact from COVID. And I think I would look at it, you know, by virtue of the job that I do, I would look at it from the terms of how supply of medicines and diagnostics is managed. I think Dr. Balgat spoke on that. From the patient perspective, there will be a greater emphasis on predictive medicine and personalized treatment. From the technology and platform perspective, I think Madhur, you spoke about it, Jasper spoke about it, and Dr. Salgaonkar also spoke about it. And finally, from the doctor perspective, what is it that is going to change in the way the doctor sees his patient and the way the doctor consumes information, scientific information? So that will be
Got it.
the last.
Yeah, Jasper.
Very quickly, perhaps. At AstraZeneca, we like to say that innovation doesn't happen in isolation. And I think that to us is such a fundamental value that if we look at international trade, it's built on interdependency. Biomedical innovation is built on interdependency. Interdependency is not a bad thing and is not something that can be avoided. Of course, self-reliance is important, and when you're caught in a storm, you need to be able to rely on yourself. But I think setting the ambition higher towards the biopharmaceutical innovation hub that India has the potential for, I think that requires friends. And AstraZeneca and, of course, the governments of the UK and Sweden are very much partners, willing partners to walk that journey together with India.
No, this is obviously very good to hear. Umesh, any parting shots from you?
The entire ecosystem has to come together and work as one, so that we'll be able to truly live up to the expectations of a global pharmacy and make sure we add value to the entire the Indian as well as global pharma space.
So this is great. I think thank you everyone. Thanks for your time and for your very candid perspectives. I think we had a very enriching and enjoyable session. A lot of takeaways. I think one clearly the opportunity is there. It's for us to take or lose. I think our response during the COVID times gives us a lot of optimism and confidence that we can do it. And we are ready for innovation and production at scale. I think that's fantastic. And the agility that Umesh you spoke about, Dr. Balgat spoke about, I think it's fantastic. There are lots of positive to draw from there. And I think last but not the least, all of you put together sort of talking about the ecosystem, regulation, pricing, the innovation, talent, culture, mindset. I think all of this put together could truly create the right formulation for all of us, in the pharma space. But I'm very confident that the key starting materials are all there, and I'm sure we're going to get to the right innovative drugs, as time passes. But thank you so much, for your time, and I think this was I personally quite enjoyed it. And thanks for the privilege for allowing me to moderate. And final note of thanks to Voice of Healthcare and Times of India Group for organizing this very insightful session in the panel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
And to you.